Good evening and welcome to the coffee table. A different kind of coffee table, one that reveals more. So hopefully it won't disturb you too much. So Mehr, today we're going to talk constitution, rule of law. We're going to talk about what the ordinary Pakistani citizen faces and what his expectations or her expectations are. Right? And we have with us Faisal Naqvi, an eminent, prominent young lawyer. I've known Faisal for quite a few years.
I have known Faisal for
a
number of years too.
He's asked me quite a few questions at different timings. Right? So Faisal, the first thing.
It's your turn.
The bears still go in the woods. Right? So this is a question I was asked many years ago. And
does he remember the context?
I'm sure he does.
No,
Faisal remembers everything. I was in London and I said, look, there's somebody who needs a bit of help in Pakistan and they're looking for a law firm, so would you be interested? And he asked me, he said, do bears still go in the woods? I said, yes, they do. So that is the context. So Mehr, would you like to start asking Faisal the first question from your own perspective, right? From a woman's perspective, a Pakistani, right? What does the rule of law really mean?
Honestly, I mean, I do believe that law exists. On paper, there is everything. There's the constitution, there is the law, there are things that should, legal things that should be done and are done, but not really. As a woman, I won't even think of going to a court. I won't even think of going to a police station, for instance, to file a report. And I would not even want to go beyond a police station. Because in my head, I have this feeling, or not feeling, because of what I've seen around me all my life, because of people who go to courts for different, for their cases, that either it takes forever, or somehow the law is so convoluted that it doesn't really favor the innocent. Now I'm talking about people who are innocent. I'm not talking about
that's the first serve. So are you going to bat it back?
No, I think there's a fair point there. Pakistan's legal system is dysfunctional. It's dysfunctional from a criminal perspective. It's dysfunctional from a civil perspective. This is a country in which it is almost impossible to enforce a contract. Yeah. And your criminal justice system is actually, has got major problems in it as well. So if you mistrust the system, it is with good cause.
So where do we start, Faisal? Where do we start? We know that the triad, let's say the three pillars, the legislator, I mean, they're the ones who are supposed to be the people, right, to enact the laws, right? Then you have the judiciary, right? They're the ones who are supposed to interpret that law. And you have the executive, right, that is supposed to deliver on the social contract to the people of Pakistan. They're the repositories of public power.
Well, I mean, coming back to her point, system doesn't work. Let's leave aside criminal justice for a moment, focus on the civil side.
Yeah.
The civil justice system is totally overwhelmed by litigation pertaining to land.
Right.
Our land regulatory system is basically about 1,000 years old, is descended from a system which was set up by the Sultans of Delhi, then further finalized by Akbar, and then modernized by the British.
Raja Todermal.
Yes. And so that entire system needs to change. And because most of the litigation that you have in the civil courts is litigation which doesn't exist in other countries. It is avoidable litigation.
Right.
So it's a supply side problem, which is then exacerbated because of demand side issues as well. Not just capacity. One of the main problems in Pakistani civil litigation is that you have any number of appeals.
Yeah.
So you have continuous appeals. Every time you file an application, there's an appeal or a revision. It keeps on going up. So the pyramid doesn't narrow. If you look at it in the United States for a civil trial, there'll be a trial. All issues will be decided by the judge. There'll be a jury, and the jury's decision on fact will be final.
Right.
Over here, you will spend any amount of time getting a final decision. Once you get a decision, our jurisprudence is that an appeal is an entire rehearing of the case in theory. So you have multiple layers of appeal. So everything becomes, more prolonged.
So these are technicalities,
no,
or
but why?
This is the structure, or what?
Doesn't it affect everybody, even people who are lawyers, judges, who are part of the system? It's not that they would never ever be in a situation where they need a lawyer or where they need legal recourse for something, redressal of something, or for a solution. So how does this not? How has Why is there no change?
There is no change because it's not recognized as a problem. If you ask me or anybody else who works on this issue as to why, for example, what is the percentage of civil cases in Lahore which relate to property disputes, nobody can give you a reasonable answer.
They can't give you stats.
There
they can't give you
hasn't
numbers.
even been a proper recognition because the people who make decisions at the end of the day, the system works for them. Everybody else can go take a hike. So until there is a general recognition, this is something which hopefully with more maturity the legislatures will attempt. Part of the problem is that these foundation laws are provincial and federal level पे तो चलें कुछ ना कुछ थोड़ी बहुत capacity है, but at the provincial level it's minimal. And trying to get this point across, ultimately you're talking about how you hold land, the whole patwari system, that needs to change. That is what is choking your entire system with avoidable litigation.
Generally, people think Patwari is only about rural and agricultural land, but it isn't. Our cities are very much delineated the same way, aren't they?
Some of them, yes. Some of them, no. Patwari is basically, you have to understand that the Patwar is basically there. It's a revenue circle.
It's a unit, right? It's a, a revenue circle.
It's a revenue circle. This is all set up as a tax system. So what your system records is who is liable to pay tax. It doesn't record title. Sorry, it's a bit technical.
Right. No,
but until you understand that, you won't understand why there's a problem.
Sure.
Let me put it in simple terms. You go to the stock market and Mehr sells you 10 shares of, I don't know, PTCL.
Right.
Now, even if she has defrauded somebody, those shares are yours forever.
Mehr, when are you giving me 10 shares of PTCL?
That
Not
I
that
think
they're
I can
worth much
afford.
these days.
Okay, now supposing Mehr sells you land and somebody else has a grievance, that property gets stuck forever in that.
That's true.
Because the state doesn't guarantee title, there are a whole bunch of other further technical issues, and you get stuck in this mess forever and forever and forever. You go, that is why people invest in DHA, because there is security of title. You don't have that in, you know, with
But I've
with
seen
safaris.
in the midst of DHA, there is somebody who's holding out, who hasn't sold his land. Right, phase 6, Lahore. If you go there, there is this little enclave right in the middle of everything, where this guy's got this little mud hut, and he's got a couple of buffaloes tied outside.
No, but that's a different issue.
Yeah.
DHA is an authority which is allowed to acquire land.
Yeah.
But DHA Lahore generally prefers to operate on the basis that you have 4 canals of undeveloped land. They give you 1 canal of developed land.
Right.
Some people tend to hold out. So then there's litigation. That's an entirely different set of issues. That doesn't have to do with why our entire civil system is choked up.
Right. Yeah, of course it isn't.
But I've seen this in my own family. We were children when my uncle, one of my mamus, got into a civil fight with his business partner. They had a paper mill in Shadara. I think it was Shadara, you know, this area, industrial area near Lahore. And I remember we were in college and then we were in our 20s, and that case never ever reached a legal conclusion.
He just
nothing ever happened.
That's exactly.
I think all of us have stories of.
I have clients whose property was acquired by the government of Sindh in June 1947, pre-partition.
Oh my God.
I'm still in the Supreme Court for them. And this continues as an issue, but normally the biggest, as you pointed out, you're telling me how you've been going to court for a year trying to give evidence. Trying to give evidence in Pakistan is something which is a huge pain, and you can try and deal with it more technically. Which is to say, you can have local commissions, you can record the evidence, you can then bring it. There are technical ways forward. Those aren't being explored at present.
They're not being explored. Huh?
So I think Shahid Kardar did a study about the year 2000 or so.
Right.
And the average suit in the Sindh High Court took almost 10 years. It was 118 months, out of which something like
But what is the cost
70.
of? There must be a huge cost to the state also. For all this.
You can't. Look, it's a business problem. So if I'm thinking of doing a deal with you, I know that if the deal goes south, I actually can't enforce it most of the time. So you will only do deals with people you absolutely, completely trust. It's like a massive tax on our economy.
So is it the same for criminal cases?
Criminal cases is a different set of issues. Criminal cases, well, two points. One, a lot of criminal litigation is actually disguised civil litigation. So somebody owes you money, doesn't pay you, you will do some sort of parcha on him for fraud,
go and file a criminal complaint,
and then
on
have
some
your
pretext.
local SHO thrash him until he pays up. There is a lot of disguised litigation. Other than that, from
That's
the
an
criminal
interesting
perspective,
term, disguised litigation. Huh?
But plain, I'm talking about, murders, cold-blooded, premeditated
the problem
murders,
there is,
or if
you have to go back again into history. Our basic police setup is from 1860. And it came immediately after the War of Independence in 1857. And basically the British made a system where इन लोगों का काम था कि वो अपने देसी भाइयों को कुटे.
Right.
They're not a modern force.
So they're still thinking that way.
They were set up that way.
That's
And this
why
is
it's
written
the
about.
same in India.
India में there
Everything
were
that
two
you're
ways.
saying is exactly the same in
Slight
India.
difference. In India, there were certain cities which were called presidency towns.
Right.
Okay.
So those were set up like mini England. Those had what, if you remember, there used to be a debate about the commissionerate system and all that.
Yeah.
That debate comes from the fact that the presidency towns operated on an English basis.
Yeah.
And what was called the Mufassal operated on the basis कि यार इन लोगों का काम है इनको जाकर कुट दें.
Right.
They're not really there to find out, you know, and to become a modern force.
Yeah.
So to upgrade the police force, and there are obviously entrenched, you know, interests. The 2002 police order was a good attempt.
Yeah.
Didn't get that
But that's
far.
been decided, huh?
Well, it's a mess. Sometimes it, you know, it was set up, but then it became politically controversial because the problem with our legislators is that they want to be thanedars.
Yeah.
सारों का शौक है कि वो थानेदार बने. और अगर थानेदार जो है वो एक्चुअली इंडिपेंडेंट होगा तो फिर आप मतलब कि लोग आपकी फिर इज्जत क्यों करेंगे?
Kal, I noticed a very interesting word. We were coming back from Delhi Darwaza, can't call it Delhi Darwaza. And there's this big building there, उसके ऊपर लिखा था कोतवाली. So it's not कोतवाली, it's को ऊपर पूरा पेश बना हुआ था. So does it have anything to do with the dog, or is it like?
No, I'm sure it isn't.
कोतवाल है.
No, it's a proper, no, because because people,
Where did this come in from?
there were people with me and they started to laugh. Of course they said
This is not just left field, this is way out.
no, what I'm saying is I was going to ask another question, that people with me, they said that this is intentional. You know, but no, they turned it into a joke.
किसी ने बाद में पेश डाली.
But puri
must have
paste.
been.
No, I always thought that it was Pakistanis and our rulers and some judge or somebody who had made this system, or some constitutionalist. जिन्होंने ये कुटने वाला system. Now you're telling me that it was the Angrez in 1857.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So
it still
we
continues.
know all this, right? We've known all this for a very long time. What is holding us back? Where does that paralysis come from? Is it just vested interest? Or is it not even understanding what is required to be done?
देखिए, this has to be done by the legislature.
Yeah.
You have to understand that there are things you need to change.
Sure.
And for example, पिछले 10 साल से I have drafted 3 laws which I have been taking to every single government.
Right.
I want a limited partnership act. You ask about why?
Yeah.
Not a LLC, but just limited partnerships.
Right.
Now those were introduced in England in 1930.
So limited partnerships actually limit your risk, right, as a partner.
So you have a general partner limited. It's a very simple way.
LPs,
it's much easier for people who can't have all of the complexity of a limited liability company or a general company.
Sure.
अच्छा एक वो 4 सफ़े का कानून है. I have been to any number of sort of government सेट के यार ये कर लो अंदर से पे इसका क्या करेंगे हम?
Right.
अच्छा.
क्या मतलब
Our arbitration act is from 1940.
Yeah.
I think sometime in 86, 87, India used to have the same law. They said this is a law which has made lawyers laugh and philosophers weep. अब भाई एक चीज़ है, there are few things where the law is actually changed. Arbitration is one of them. It's basically business class justice.
Yeah.
People want to pay, should be allowed independently to go and get their business disputes resolved.
True.
पाकिस्तान में इस वक्त arbitration का कोई फायदा नहीं है.
Yeah.
उसमें time
It's just a
ज़ाया होता है.
clause
No, but
there.
when they ask you कि इसका क्या करेंगे, what do you say? कि इसका
देखिए
क्या?
ये कानून है, ये ले लें.
हाँ, तो
ये कानून है, इसको बना लें.
then you tell them what the benefits are. So what do they say
But
then?
nobody is listening.
Yeah.
The legislature here isn't interested in legislating.
Do you think
All of
this
your
government
legislation
will pay
comes
attention?
in. It might. I hope so. If somebody
All they
wants
want
to.
is development funds, huh?
No, but you have to understand that the psyche of the legislator is there to make sure that his guys get out of jail and the
That's
other
it.
guys go into jail. So
So
if there is still a patronage perspective,
The culture of patronage
but
is
even
still the
beyond that, part of the problem is कि जो आपके by and large your legal structure is fine. लोग कहते हैं जी आपका contract act पुराना है, evidence act पुराना है, उसको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता.
Yeah,
They're fantastic laws.
Right.
Some of your laws need to be changed.
Sure.
Some of your legal systems need to be changed.
Right.
But that effort isn't being made. Legal reform, what happens most of the time is that somebody will fly in from the World Bank and say, ye kar lo.
Yeah, right.
And then you'll have somebody like me who will do a
sure.
study and say, कि ये 10 ममालिक की ये survey है,
Yeah.
ये best practice and एक और कानून बन जाएगा जिसका कोई फायदा नहीं होगा.
Right. So let's take a short break. We'll come back and we'll pick it up from here. So take a short break. Faisal is not just educating, he's telling us, right, where the real problems lie. So fascinating listening to him. Stay with us, come back from the break. Welcome back. So we're having a conversation with Faisal Naqvi, and we're talking about the whole issue of the rule of law. In reality, what an ordinary citizen of Pakistan faces when they have to think of their own rights, when they have to think of litigation in the courts, when they think of property disputes. And what Faisal was telling us is that one of the biggest issues are property disputes, and how they're layered in terms of appeal after appeal after appeal, and it takes forever. So Faisal, so the legislator, right, does not have the kind of understanding that it should have had. So why are we not pushing it? Why don't we push them?
We'll mix the, I'll ask a question and he can answer both. I'm going to read these statistics. 38,539 cases pending in the Supreme Court, 293,947 cases pending in the 5 high courts, 1.8 million cases with the subordinate judiciary of the 4 provinces, and according to some estimates, 90% of civil cases involve land disputes. In most civil cases, the litigants have to wait for decades. What you just told us.
Well, for me, the judgment, the number which sticks out there is not the millions at the lower court level. Why do we have 40,000 cases at the Supreme Court level?
Supreme Court. I wanted to ask
the US Supreme Court decides 80 cases a year. Our Supreme Court, again, the problem is that everything gets appealed almost as a matter of right. So even though there is supposed to be very limited appeals, there, to get to the Supreme Court, there's actually normally you have to first get permission to file an appeal.
The leave to appeal.
Yeah, leave to appeal. So then it's like it's a 2-stage process. But 40,000 cases.
That's a lot.
So we need to be concentrating on, and I did a study just randomly about, as I said, I think it was about 2005 or so. And let me connect it to the point that I was making. Until 2007 and 2008, the law in Punjab was that if you wanted to get rid of a tenant, you had to either prove bona fide personal need, or you had to show that he had defaulted. You didn't have a right just because the lease agreement
because it's your property and you
people used to refuse to rent to anybody except foreigners and multinationals.
That's true.
And normally it would take about a decade to go from filing to eventual. I did 2 cases from start to finish. Each of them took 13 years. Each of them went to the Supreme Court.
Just tenancy, huh?
Yeah, tenancy issues.
Residential.
Basic residential property. So between 2000 and 2005, this is the study that I did. It's not a serious one. I just had an associate run some numbers. 6% of all reported Supreme Court cases are rent cases.
But
now,
that's horrible.
That's amazing. That's just unbelievable.
Go ahead. Go further with that. In 2008, Punjab changed the law. Now, if you're the landlord, you can throw out somebody just because you want to. So because you change the law, that entire basis for delay disappears. So that's what I mean when I say some of your laws actually create an incentive for litigation.
True.
You no longer have that in Punjab. You still have the same problem in Karachi.
Who's supposed to sit down and say, look, this is what we need to do? Is it the bar that is supposed to sit down and, like you just said, you prepared three laws, right? And they were very simple. You said 3-4 pages only. It wasn't very lengthy, but there were no takers, right? So where do we put pressure? How do we build pressure that the legislator is willing to listen and look at things, look at the laws and say, how do we simplify this? Because the Constitution does guarantee me, right to protection of life, limb, and property, right? So, and property is one of the key factors, right? I remember Dr. Nadeem ul Haq always talking about, right, the protection of property. And property can mean a lot of things. It doesn't just mean a physical space. It can also mean my intellectual property. It could be my intellectual endeavor. Even that is property. So that also falls within the same ambit.
Well, intellectual property has a separate tribunal, but again,
the concept, the principle.
Look, the problem is even if you set up a separate tribunal, let's say for IP, eventually it comes back into the main body and then gets stuck there.
Gets stuck again.
So that's one set of issues. But you're saying, why don't people fix this? Whose responsibility is it? Now, normally it's the legislature, but in Pakistan, I would say, I would go further. There is something called a Law and Justice Commission of Pakistan, headed by the Supreme Court of Pakistan, Chief Justice of Pakistan. He needs to be looking at it. because we have created that. In normal circumstances, the Chief Justice of a country has enough to do on his plate.
Yeah.
So Chief Justice Khosa is sitting there every day dealing with 30, 40 cases.
Sure.
He does a great job
Should
with
he
that.
be part of the bench? Should he be sitting on the bench, or should he be administrative?
That's, I think we're putting too much of a burden on the Supreme Court. This is a legislator's job.
Right.
You
But
need to go out there and do this.
What you just said, that the US Supreme Court has only 80 cases a year, is
Roughly.
that the norm in most civilized countries? And our system is not really Pakistani made. It's not that it was made by people sitting here. You said most of it is what we've
Carry over.
inherited from the British. So I want to understand, I don't really know much about law in other countries other than what I see in television shows and documentaries. And what I have noticed is that very few cases make it to the Supreme Court. It's a huge, huge deal for a case to go to a Supreme Court, because, you know, that is the last point, point of a legal recourse. So why has this thing been so trivialized in Pakistan?
Well,
Going to Supreme Court, like everybody can go to
multiple
Supreme
reasons.
Court.
One is the fact that these sort of, you know, this plethora of options for appeal is essentially a colonial hangover.
Right.
Simple version was कि जो High Court का जज था वो गोरा था,
Right.
उसके नीचे जो था वो काला था.
Right.
तो
So-
you wanted to make sure कि जो नीचे कर रहा है उसको जब चाहे हम उसको ठीक कर लें.
ठीक है.
So वो आपके पास option है.
Right.
Now, even after independence, we've retained all of those powers to interfere, and we've always broadened them. So over time, what used to be fairly limited sort of avenues of appeal and redressal have been broadened into whatever we want, whenever we want. Now you add to that the political development of this country, in which we have, you know, with the judicial revolution, we've decided that the judiciary is our savior. Now the judiciary can't be your savior.
Right.
It's there to implement the law,
The law.
occasionally to interpret it, but it's not there to lead you.
Yeah.
There's a famous quote. There was an American judge called Judge Learned Hand.
Right.
Never became a Supreme Court judge, but was one of the most. He said, liberty lives in the hearts of men.
Yeah. That's
So
true.
long as it lives there, it requires no court to protect it. And when it dies there, no court
Can actually preserve it.
can preserve it. So when we try and do this system, and I think it's a hangover from, you know, Justice Iftikhar Chaudhary's, you know, judicial revolution, we keep on thinking कि जी बस पीर साईं अहमद तो मीठे चावल खाओ. सुप्रीम कोर्ट में चीफ जस्टिस साहब आ गए हैं, वो एक जो जादू की छड़ी है और फिर सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा. It doesn't work that way. These are systemic issues.
Yeah.
And I don't think Justice Iftikhar, with great respect, fantastic judge in many ways, he came up with a judicial policy, I think in 2013. It was basically उसमें तो फतवा था.
Right.
इतने टाइम में आप ये करेंगे, इतने टाइम में आप ये करेंगे, but it doesn't work that way. But if your systems are flawed and there's too much for people to do, फकत मांगने से तो नहीं होती ना.
No, of course not.
You have to change the systems.
So environmental or systemic, like you said.
I
These are
tweeted
systemic
this
issues.
the day the new Supreme Court, I mean the new Chief Justice was sworn in. I said, please do not turn him into a savior or a messiah. Let him be a judge, because this is what we do.
Yeah.
We take them, we put them on a pedestal, and then we start expecting things from them. And most people do get a tad too large for their.
The problem, I think, is because we are constantly looking for a messiah because the problems are so big.
Yeah.
Right? On an individual level, forget about a community and forget about, you know, anything bigger than that. Individually, I have so many problems. Right? I'm constantly, you know, I can be harassed in so many ways, even as an ordinary citizen.
But
we also
it's a
look for
mentality issue.
loopholes.
हमारे ख्याल से when we, you know, I'm not talking about this Chief Justice, is less sort of inclined to judicial interventionism. But पहले ये था, हम कहते थे देखें Chief Justice आया उसने ये कर दिया.
Yeah.
So, and we used to be proud of the fact that the Chief Justice has taken so moto notice of something and done X, Y, Z. And I'm not talking about, you know, necessarily Chief Justice Saqib Nisar, उनसे पहले भी था.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember a case involving a different Chief Justice where the Chief Justice saw something on TV, picked up the phone and said, why is this man still out on bail? Obviously, his bail cancel ho gayi, and then one had to say, excuse me, he's got certain rights as well. But a system which requires on the direct intervention of the Chief Justice is a non-functioning system. And it's not just Chief Justice. आपको याद होगा 98, 99 में there was a point where then Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif used to sit by a phone on PTV. Somebody would call up and say, and he would say, ये कर दो. If you are down to a situation where the chief executive or the chief justice or one individual has to give orders, then that system is flawed.
It is flawed. Absolutely.
It's not working. It's not the fact that a Chief Justice intervenes is not proof that the system is working, it's proof that the system is
I mean,
failing.
I find it kind of, absurd that a crime takes place, a major one, right? In terms of it's very public, and then you see on television that Chief Minister has taken notice, or the President has taken notice, or the Prime Minister has taken notice. Why should it require any of the individuals to take notice?
The
Because why
premise
can't it happen?
of any legal system is equality of law for everybody. We should be able to look at the law for everything. I mean, as a normal
in some cases,
human.
our citizenry is reassured. Forget my theory.
Right.
The average man, when he sees, for example, the Kasoor mein
Yes.
rape,
Yeah, that's
Chief
what I
Justice
was,
intervened.
Yeah.
He pushed the people. DNA tests, everything was carried out with. Now that was a great thing.
Yeah.
The problem is that the exception becomes the rule.
The rule. That's the
That's
problem.
where you get into trouble.
Yeah.
So when people see that there is such a blatant violation of law, then they are reassured when the Chief Justice or the Chief Minister, somebody comes in and says, "Ki yaar, ye zyadati ho rahi
So
hai."
that's why you have 184.3, right? For these exceptional cases. Or what is 184.3? Tell us.
dekhiye, the Supreme Court has two types of jurisdiction.
Right.
One is appellate jurisdiction,
Right.
which comes from the High Court or somewhere else.
Sure.
The other is original jurisdiction.
Right.
Original jurisdiction, again, for example, if there is a dispute between province and, well, let's say, Punjab and Sindh,
Right.
that goes directly into the Supreme Court. In addition to that, if there is a question of public importance involving fundamental human rights.
Let's
the
take an example. Let's take a real example. What does it mean? Right? An issue of public importance.
Okay, for example, rights of, if you want, say, a case which I would agree with, let's say the rights of transgenders.
Okay. All right.
Aslam Khaki fought that case brilliantly.
Right.
The fact that transgenders in Pakistan have all of these rights is due to judicial interventionism.
Right.
Now, the problem is that then everything becomes, has the capacity to become 184.3.
Right.
And, you would have, as we saw earlier, everything is tied to the right to life.
Yeah.
Everything is tied to, whatever right you want. वो तो right बनाना तो कोई मुश्किल काम नहीं है.
Right.
अब ये आपने जो समुंदर जो खोल दिया हुआ है, इसको आप कुएं में किस तरह बंद करेंगे? And your problem is, there is another problem, which is a functional problem. There is a 184.3 case. It is, let's say, inquisitorial. Wherever the judge wants to take it, goes this way, that way.
Right.
And next thing you know, for example, आपके खिलाफ strictures pass हो गए, if you're a bureaucrat or something, you don't have a right of appeal.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the biggest kind of.
So in a country of appeals, they don't have a right to appeal.
So
because
you see, once a judge has taken so motu notice, उसको कौन बरी करता है? आप मुझे एक केस बता दें कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा he's taking so motu notice and then say कि हमने गलत लिया.
Yeah, he's in a
that
way.
never happens.
Yeah, he's in a way kind of telegraphing his intent, isn't he?
Once you've taken so motu notice, by definition that person is in trouble.
Right.
उसके बाद उसको माफी कौन देगा?
Right. Right.
Even if he's
Okay,
innocent.
we're going to take another break, a very short one. This is really getting interesting now, and we're going to get it to a more interesting stage. So please stay with us. We'll come back from a very, very short break. Welcome back. So we're having a rather interesting conversation with Faisal Naqvi, and very, very interesting things that are being said. Faisal, before we go on to talk about it more, you like rain?
Rain?
Yeah, you like monsoons.
Yes.
So who's the monsoon frog?
That would be me.
That would be you.
Because what happened was when I started writing, one of my friends said to me, because I wrote an opinion piece one way, then another way, so he said, "Tu to barsati daddu hai." So if you look at monsoon frog, he'll say it's the voice of the barsati daddu.
It's voice of the barsati.
It's just an archive where I put my columns, nothing but more than
Daddus
that.
are very cute.
Yeah,
From
but
a distance.
I picked out one. I remember one particular one that you had written about when you were coming back to Pakistan, or something about, you were musing about more or less the philosophy of life and all that.
No, I was trying to explain why I'm here. Because if you have the choice, then
So it's not the money?
No, it's not the money.
It's not the money.
I want to ask you something.
No, hang on, let me finish
sorry,
first,
sorry.
right?
I'm sorry.
So why are you here? Why are you back?
This is my country. I want to make a difference.
You want to make a difference. And have you been able to make a difference?
I don't know, but I've enjoyed it thoroughly over here.
Enjoyed it thoroughly.
And I look at many of my class fellows who are out there, and it's up to them. There's a book which I read recently. It's called Tribe.
Right.
And it talks about how it comes out of the fact that soldiers have this post-traumatic stress disorder
Yes.
because when they are fighting, they're part of a very close-knit group. And then when they come back into the US, there they lack the same sort of social
Yeah, the
cohesion.
camaraderie, the kind of
So
dependence, interdependence.
if you want to do public interest litigation, then you have to be where your public is.
Yeah, that's true.
Whether, I can't change the fact that this is my public, this is my country, this is what I feel for.
Yeah.
So I don't really have an option in that sense. This is where I want to be.
Good.
interesting.
You're happy you're here.
Yeah. Now you're going to ask your question.
In a country where everybody is looking for justice, when you talk to normal, regular people from underprivileged backgrounds, they want justice. They want justice for a number of things. But what I have noticed recently is that the first thing they say is, I'm going to call a television studio. We are going to call even people who are illiterate people who
Yeah, it's
working
become like
in
a
other
security
people's houses,
blanket.
that it's very unfortunate that instead of going to a police station, they say that we will get in touch with a television studio network. And the other thing is social media activism. There are a number of cases that would have never reached anywhere
Yeah.
if the people were not talking about it on social media. Even the case.
Afzal Koistani, right? We've had this incident just what 48 hours
Unbelievably
before, right? Where here was a man, right, who was
Fighting
seriously
for
under
her.
threat, right? And he was provided no protection, even though there were calls, there was a need, there was constant. He was getting threats constantly. So it's a great miscarriage of justice in a way that the last witness in a way, right, to the whole incident in Koistan, right, has been gunned down,
2012.
right, and it just it's just not enough to lament and to cluck our tongues and move on.
2 points.
Yeah.
First, hers.
Yeah.
Why do people call up television anchors? Because they have clout.
Yes.
And people reach to wherever they have accessibility. So if you know an MNA, you'll call the MNA,
Yeah.
you'll call the MPA. If you know a policeman, you'll call them.
Very
That is the
true.
way the system works. You operate through personal relationships.
Unfortunately.
That has to do with the fact that your police system needs reform.
Yeah.
I think the police does an amazing job given the very limited resources that are made available to them.
They do.
If there is one thing which needs to be done in Pakistan, it is police reform across the board, because that is where most people get their justice from.
True.
And the police system needs to be fixed. Right now, this whole system of an FIR is idiotic.
Yeah.
I mean, I can file an FIR that I saw you, for example, killing XYZ.
Yeah.
And on that basis, you can be arrested. So
That
what
would be
we've
all
done
right.
is-
But saying he was riding a pig would really get me into trouble.
It would. No, but what you do through the FIR system is that you privatize the arrest of people.
Right.
What happens in America, if I file a complaint, you don't get arrested automatically.
Right.
But that entire system has been deformed. It needs to be fixed. That part needs
What
to be
do
fixed.
they do?
If I file a complaint in America that I saw him, for example, murdering someone, they will go and say, well, Mr. Sherjan, where were you?
Okay, they'll investigate. Start an
investigation.
investigation.
But it comes back to the police. If the police is conceptualized as basically a thug type instrument, तो फिर पुलिस का काम है कि उसको जाके पकड़ के उठा के ले आए.
Right.
That is why your bail system works in reverse. Over here, everybody gets thrown in and then everybody gets bail.
Gets bailed.
And then bails go up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
In America, you either get bail or you don't,
Yeah.
but you certainly don't appeal them.
Right.
It's a different type of system. But you have to go into why was the system conceptualized and change those framework issues, which we don't do.
Yeah.
Aapka point jo hai about Afzal Koistani, yes, it's a tragedy. But in every system, and I'm not trying to be callous here, there will be certain tragedies.
Yeah.
What you want to see is what are the systemic problems which cause this?
Yes.
The systemic problem is basically that your system of justice is flawed.
Right.
It doesn't work, it's ancient, it needs to be modernized. People haven't allowed it to be modernized because politicians don't want to let go, because police is
So it's
really
it's power dynamics.
it's a power dynamic issue.
It's a power dynamic. And then, we had this incident of the young girl who was murdered and then burned. So those 15 people, they hauled up 15 people, right? And because there were 15 people, there was hardly any evidence against any of them. And they've all been acquitted.
Amreen case.
Amreen's case. So they've all been acquitted, right? And when you talk about it, it's because the investigation was weak, right? There was hardly any evidence that was gathered. So that
I'm going
another
to
big,
interrupt
flaw.
here because I have written about this
Right.
girl in
Yeah, I know
my
you
book.
have,
So no, there was investigation. They did forensic testing. They found the cloth with which she was strangled. They found medicines that were used. They checked telephone records of everybody. Everything was done.
It may have been done, but the manner in which evidence is presented to the court is the big
obviously,
issue.
and there must have been some witness issues or something, because two people killed her, but there were all these people who were watching. There was abetment to murder, and so the case was registered against each one of them.
They've all been acquitted.
But now this is horrible.
All 15 of them have been acquitted. We are going to have you back again because this is such a big subject, right? And we need to talk more about it. But while you're here, let us look at 2 or 3 things, right, that you would consider to be critical, right, and saying
Very
this needs
important.
to happen. So the Judicial Commission, is it? The Judicial Law Commission?
Law and Justice Commission
Law
of
and Justice
Pakistan
Commission.
is one part of it, but the number one thing which needs to change in Pakistan is the way in which you record title to land.
Right.
That system needs to be reconceived from the ground up.
Right.
And because
So has
that is-
anybody done any work on that?
Not really.
Not really.
Not
so
to my
somebody
knowledge.
needs to
Yes.
really do that.
That's issue number one.
So
Issue
who
number
would be
two
best
is
qualified to do that? Would it be lawyers? Would it be revenue officials? Who would be the one person?
but look at your question.
Yeah.
A revenue official.
Yes.
A revenue official is there. He's there
He's
for
not
a
going to
tax
do
circle.
anything.
He's part of that system.
Yeah, he's part of
those
that
people
system.
know how it
Right.
works,
Yeah.
and it's very important. And it's look, it's like you want to change the foundations of a building while you're living in it. It's
Yeah.
not going to be easy, but at least we need to recognize it as a problem. Our criminal justice system and the way it is triggered through FIRs
Yeah.
and the way the police is conceptualized, that at least has been recognized. There's been some work.
Right.
Shoaib Sadal Saab did a
Yeah.
lot of work,
Right.
2002 police ordinance. That needs to continue.
Right.
So that's second thing. And third thing I would say is you need to have a good arbitration system because businesses need to be able to
Is
resolve
that
disputes.
arbitration or ADR, the alternative dispute resolution
Dekhiye,
system?
ADR is
That
a bigger picture.
arbitration is part of
Arbitration
that?
is part of that.
Part of that.
ADR includes mediation, includes arbitration. I'm
Right.
talking about commercial arbitration.
Yeah.
ADR pay, UNDP did this project called Gender Justice through Masalat Anjuman Pakistan. Masalat Anjuman are part of the local government ordinances of each, those need to be activated. They did a really good job. I did a project with them. I was really impressed because वो हर यूनियन काउंसिल में ये 3-3 बंदों का ग्रुप था, इनको ट्रेन किया हुआ था कि छोटे-छोटे मसाइल जो थे वो वहाँ पे हल करते थे.
Before they get to court.
Before they get to
So
court.
who can make this thing happen?
It's already there. It needs to be activated. You need to put money in it.
Who
By
needs to?
the provinces, in this case, need to put more of an effort into
Who
local
in the
government.
province? Who has the authority to do it?
The government, whoever the government is right now, the
The
provincial
chief
So
government.
the law
chief
minister, Raja
Law
Bashara.
minister or
No,
chief
the
minister?
chief minister
The
has
chief
to push
minister
on to this,
has
or
to
whoever
push
the
on.
minister
Let's
is from
start
local
activism
government.
on this.
Yeah.
Talk to him about the law minister. In every province you can do that. उससे बहुत फर्क पड़ेगा.
Right.
That is a ADR system which is at the lower level. मैं बात कर रहा हूँ commercial arbitration की.
But the problem, I think, Faisal, is people don't even realize that I have elected somebody. I have every right to go and ask him or her questions and saying, I sent you to the legislator to basically go and do things for my interest. Or what have you done? Right? Or why aren't you doing this? Or why aren't you pushing on that?
देखिए, for too many years we have just assumed कि जो पुराना system है, framework that keeps on going.
Right.
And that is a framework built around executive action. What does the legislator do? As I said, he makes sure that his friends stay out of jail and his enemies go to jail. And also if he can bring in some projects to his district, he's a great guy.
Right.
Most legislatures are not going to, in Pakistan, going to help conceptualize fresh law.
Right.
But you need the legislature, you need the judiciary, and you need people who write on these issues to actually do something. But first, recognize it as a problem.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking it somehow suits the people who are in the business, in the law business. Maybe lawyers like this. Maybe they like to drag cases. So I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking about millions of lawyers that we see.
But आप देखें, most lawyers get
Everywhere.
paid. I get paid for most commercial cases lump sum upfront.
Okay.
The longer the case goes on, the more I'm
The more
losing.
time you
So
get.
it's, and I don't like being in a country where somebody
You've
comes to
cleared
me with a
that.
contractual dispute and says, "इसका क्या हो सकता है?" No, most of
You're
the time
not
कुछ नहीं हो
paid by
सकता.
the hour. It's not.
No,
okay,
I
so
get paid by the hour, normally only on international cases or international arbitrations. Look, arbitration is a plug and play concept. ये कानून पड़ा हुआ, it's off the shelf. Pick it up, put it in play, and it will work.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. वो कानून बने हुए हैं. वो कॉपी तो कर लो.
arbitration case courts even in a country like India वहाँ पे भी issue है. I was reading about it. a few weeks ago that they have to go to, I think, Maldives or Singapore or something, somewhere else.
Why?
I think what he
You
just
don't need
said.
to go offshore.
You know, I don't remember
That's
the technical things.
international commercial arbitration is a different issue.
Yeah.
That means when you have really big projects and people don't trust the
इस तरह
courts of Pakistan or courts of India,
India.
then they'll say go to. उसका कानून ठीक है, उसका मसला नहीं है.
Okay.
But जो बेसिक पाकिस्तान में जो बिजनेसमैन है उनको तो कम से कम कोई डिस्प्यूट रेजोल्यूशन मैकेनिज्म दे दो. इस वक्त कोई आपके पैसे लेके भाग जाए तो आप क्या करेंगे? ज़्यादा अगर उसने चेक दिया, उसने बाउंस किया होगा, आप उसके ऊपर एफआईआर कटा देंगे, वो बेल करा लेगा, मामला खत्म हो जाएगा. या आप उसको उठवा के आप उसको कोर्ट लगवा देंगे, शायद पैसे दे दे.
ये तो मैं धमकी देती हूँ the person who has my money कि you know you did it to me, otherwise you know I would have filed a case against you. या मैंने खुद पढ़वानी थी किसी से. I say this to him from time to time.
No, but it is a dysfunctional system. It's not even recognized as a problem. I can't enforce a contract in Pakistan.
Yeah, that's true.
Most of my commercial litigation, the most commercial lawyers in Pakistan, the top commercial lawyers, most of what they're doing is they're suing the government.
Yeah.
Because the government is highly intrusive. So ये जो writ petitions जो सारी होती है जिनका commercial background होता है, ये government regulations के खिलाफ होती हैं. You don't.
कुछ को नतीजा निकलता है.
उसमें से नतीजा निकल जाता है. Why? Because most of the time आप stay ले रहे होते हैं. कई दफा आप जीत भी जाते हैं. But जो basic private party to private party commercial litigation जो पूरी दुनिया में चलती है, वो पाकिस्तान में बहुत कम होती है.
Doesn't move.
उसका कोई फायदा नहीं होता.
Have you ever been?
Yeah, of course.
Experiences.
Yes, many of them. So that is why that's one of the reasons why economic activity also gets stunted, because you cannot or you
Trust
don't
the
want to
law.
invest. I mean, I deal with startups, right? So I deal with very young companies. Now, if they get into a contract with a very large company, they are actually very vulnerable, right? Because you may sign any contract, but if your money is not coming through, you're in trouble. I've seen a company that was doing business with about 30 million rupees revenue every month actually implode and die, simply because they were not getting paid on time, right? The more they grew, the bigger the hole they were digging for themselves, because the money wasn't coming through.
Yes.
And the contracts, right, again, had really no way. So he had no options. You know, those founders had no option either to go to court, which would have in any case killed the business, right, or try and salvage whatever they could. Right? It just wasn't happening. So we know all this. Again, you know, yes, you're right. The revenue official is not going to do anything because that's his mainstay.
मैं ये कह रहा हूँ, जो आपका बेसिक सिविल लॉ का सिस्टम है, उसमें जो मसाइल हैं वो बहुत सीरियस है.
Right.
That will take a long time to fix. जो आपके बिजनेस डिस्प्यूट्स हैं, उसका एक आसान सा हल है कि कमर्शियल आर्बिट्रेशन का कानून बना दें जो कि ढंग का हो.
ठीक.
You can have, let's say, a fast lane for commercial disputes.
Yeah.
इस मुल्क में वो नहीं है.
This would be good for the economy. This would be good.
It's not even recognized as a problem. I mean, people say कि जी ठीक है, commercial bench बना दिया आपने हाई कोर्ट में, वो commercial bench 1 घंटे के लिए बैठता है डेली.
That's it.
And it's not original jurisdiction. Karachi में, this is why businesses prefer to go to Karachi, because Karachi में, again, because of a quirk of history, for more than a certain amount, I think it's 5 crores right now, a dispute goes straight to the high court.
Okay.
Lahore में, even doesn't matter if
You
it's
can
20 billion,
lock
it
it up
goes
in
to
the
the
lower
civil
court.
court.
And
Yeah,
what
you can lock
happens
it up in
in
civil court.
Balochistan and KP?
Only Karachi. Karachi used to be part of the Bombay presidency.
अच्छा, so उनके cases
So
भी वहाँ
उनका
पे
वहाँ पे ये है system के और commercial disputes go directly into the high court. And you see businesses are clustered in
No,
Karachi.
what I'm saying is
coming
people
on
from
to-
these areas, Balochistan or KP, do they go to Karachi or
No,
they,
what he's saying,
they have their own
prefer-
high court?
Yeah, yeah, they have their
prefer
own
to
high
establish
court.
their businesses in
Those
Karachi.
people in businesses in Karachi have an advantage that their business disputes can go to directly to the Karachi High Court, but Sindh High Court. But even there, it's become very slow.
Because of volume, sheer volume.
It's
was
a,
like
it's a very depressing discussion.
We're coming right to the almost the end of the program. So Halloween, you still have the Halloween party?
No.
No, you don't? What happened to Halloween? Just about the time that I thought,
You want to go to his Halloween
yeah,
party?
I want to go as Major Adnan Sami Khan,
Oh God.
Well,
undercover agent.
you would be the new Major Adnan Sami Khan or the earlier Adnan Sami Khan?
The one who's in ISI employment,
Well,
undercover.
we'll think about having a party just for you. Don't worry.
Just just so that you can go as
Yeah, so I
Major
want to
Adnan
go as
Sami.
Major Adnan Sami
Oh,
Khan.
he meant, you know, the weight thing, or
Yeah, you probably
this is an incentive for you to
Yes, I know.
be the
Only
new
festival-
Adnan Sami by the time Halloween is around.
That's so.
31st of October,
Yeah.
we'll
So
get in touch.
Lal Shah, the last question. Who is Lal Shah?
That would be me.
Why is it Lal Shah?
according to family legend, when I was born, Lal Shahbaz Qalandar was playing on the radio.
Right.
So my nickname as a kid was Lal Shah.
Lal Shah.
That is so.
So that's why I just used it.
Fantastic.
When I started.
And here I thought there was a deep Sufi cultural thing, philosophical thing.
I was called Lal Baba or Lal Shah as a
Okay,
kid by
brilliant.
the servants because of this. And
Brilliant,
it just
brilliant.
started.
As long as you were not the
maybe
Lal
you were
Tofi
Lal.
Sarkar.
Huh?
As long as you didn't wear the Lal Tofi.
वो तो सिर्फ एक ही है. Zaid Hamid.
I know. All right. Thank you very much for staying with us. We're going to get Faisal back on the show because there's so much more to talk about. We have to look at what's happening around us. We need to speak up. We need to talk. We need to go back to our elected representatives and we need to ask them questions. And we need to keep asking them questions till they come up with the answers. Thank you for being with us.